Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ishak. And thank you very much, Ishak, and also to Gretty for organising this. It was an honour to be invited, and it's fantastic to be here, and also fantastic to hear the other talks so far. Some of them people I haven't met yet, although I know of them. And so it's great to hear about all the work that's being done. Oops, I better use this. Was all that audible just then? Right, thank you. Okay, my name's Mark Blagrove, and I'm from the Sleep Laboratory at Swansea University. And I'm going to speak about memory consolidation during sleep and dreams, and whether there is a relationship between them. Slow wave sleep. Just to give people a recap, slow wave sleep, stage 2 sleep, and REM sleep are known to be involved in some way in memory consolidation during sleep, possibly in different ways. We've heard earlier on, and many of us know about the replay of new memories in the brain during sleep, and that memory consolidation is greater for important materials, such as material you're paid to recall, or that is in some other way important. A lot of that's done by a 12-12 system of studies where people learn something and then 12 hours later, across the night or across the day, they recall. Often found that across the night, recall is better or not worse than across the day. To give an example of something we've recently done, we've got people to learn Welsh. These are English people who've come to Wales. They learn the Welsh language, and we taught them the Welsh language. Across the night, their recall was better, whereas across the day, their recall just stayed the same. So it's another example of memory consolidation in sleep. We also asked them, how much do you value the Welsh language? Because in Wales, there is a great difference of opinion as to whether the language is wonderful, cultural, ancient, worthy, or a waste of time. And people are different on those, very, very much so, I'm afraid, especially at the moment. And the people who had a better opinion of the Welsh language had more memory consolidation during sleep. So this is a personal motivation coming in, as opposed to the usual one where we give them a motivation of money. Now, for dreams, what can happen is, if we want to investigate whether dreams have anything to do with personal motivations, if we want to investigate this scientifically, it can be quite difficult because we have to make sure this is properly controlled. So one of the things we've done in Swansea a lot is to get people to keep a diary for, say, a week or 10 days. Then they come to the lab and we wake them up in REM sleep, non-REM sleep, or they get dreams at home. They get their dream reports, and then we give them a whole load of sheets of those, and they have to say where from waking life did the components of the dream come from. And we've usually got them to say what the emotion is of those parts of the dream, of those parts of waking life. And this is a paper that we've just published. I can now first author in Social, Cognitive and Affective Neuroscience. Items from waking life that were incorporated into dreams are more emotional than ones that are not incorporated into dreams. And all of these items, incorporated and non-incorporated, had to be on the diary. So people are not just inventing or thinking back to what was there. These are all diary items. So dreams, like sleep, seem to incorporate or take special note of what is important to us. And this has led to theories about possible functions of dreaming. So, for example, there's this paper, The Roles of the Reward System in Sleep and Dreaming, that points out a dopaminergic system for reward that works in the day, when we're awake, works during sleep, and is possibly related to dream formation. Ernest Hartman, who wrote many papers about how dreaming is a time of our life when we can make broad connections. We can make more peripheral connections than we do in waking life thoughts, and possibly that this could make dreaming a bit like psychotherapy, where we explore aspects of our memory. Another theory is Revontuo's threat simulation theory. This is a virtual reality theory, and it's not like the normal mnemonic or emotional processing or memory consolidation theories. Instead, this theory says that we are in an environment when we're dreaming, and we engage with the environment. This is quite an important scientific question. We don't just have a hallucination when we're dreaming.
we actually live for the experience. Now, that's really important about why we would do that, as well as, say, just hallucinate. And so what Revonsuo says is we're not just practicing memories, we are living an experience. It's a virtual reality. We simulate the waking world, and in particular simulate threats in that waking world. And what they say is in dreaming we practice overcoming threats. And the people, or possibly other mammals, who are better at practicing overcoming threats in their dreams are more adaptive and have greater reproductive success when they are awake. So it's an evolutionary theory. That theory has now been amended to include dreaming being a simulation of social reality as well as of physical threats. And they've published in 2015 this paper, Dreaming as a Simulation of Social Reality, in which they emphasize the fact that in dreaming there is social bonds, social skills, bonds, interactions, networks of people that we engage with in our waking life. And they say we are practicing our waking social life, our waking social world with all of its conflicts, affections, everything, during the time of dreaming. And whoever does that better has an adaptive advantage when they're awake. Now, evidence for these. We published a paper last year, Eichenlaub first author, in Social, Cognitive and Affective Neuroscience. And what we'd done was we used the method that I first showed you, which works out how much of waking life goes into our dreams. And what we found was that the amount of incorporation of waking life experiences into dreams from the day or two before the dream was significantly correlated with the theta power at the two frontal lobes during sleep. Now, theta's been associated with memory consolidation, and so therefore the idea around this paper and these findings was that this experience in dreaming is the experience of the memory consolidation occurring. Interestingly, the further back you went, if you took elements from your life 3 to 10 days before the dream and added those up, they did not correlate with the theta power. So it seems to be that the theta is doing something to the recent incorporations into dreams, and that once you've got those incorporated, if they come into your dream again, they're not being processed in the same way. And we found the effect was even greater for dreams from the last REM sleep period of the night. Wasn't true for slow wave sleep dreams. Now, this idea then of memory consolidation and sleep, this is one of the most famous papers for it by Walmsley and Stickhold, who are very much in favour of that relationship. Memory, Sleep and Dreaming, Experiencing Consolidation is the title. So your dreams are the experience of consolidation. Bob even goes so far to make this famous quip of his that dreaming is the poor man's fMRI. In other words, if you want to know what the brain is processing during the night and you can't put somebody into an fMRI to find out what's lighting up, you ask them what their dreams are and they will show you what's being processed. He knows there's a possible problems with that. It was just a sort of an interesting line he used at a conference, but it shows the hard version of the dreaming reflex, or has a role in memory consolidation view. Now, often cited as support for dreaming being related to memory consolidation is this Walmsley paper, Dreaming of a Learning Task is Associated with Enhanced Sleep-Dependent Memory Consolidation. And what Erin Walmsley and Stickhold and others did was got people to learn a maze. They then had a 2-hour non-REM sleep nap. They were then tested on the maze after the nap and compared to people who didn't have a nap. The result was that memory improved across sleep compared to across wake. But they also found that there was improved performance at retest was greater for the people who had dreamt of the maze than for the people who hadn't. So this is often cited as evidence that if you dream of this consolidation, that's giving some maybe extra boost to the consolidation that is happening. However, there's two problems there. The first is that the task-related reports were remotely related to the maze. And this does cause some people to say, well, look, our dreams are so weird, they're so strange, how can they be helping in anything? De Koning has looked at language learners and said, they dream of mistakes. This can't be helping them, can't be related to memory consolidation. And it's true of dreams in general, they don't copy our waking life events or learning. But the second really important problem with that paper, and as I say at the bottom, it's true of their latest replication as well, which has only just been published, is that the people who dreamt of the task were also the ones who did worse at the task when they were learning it. So it starts to look like the dream isn't connected to within sleep memory consolidation processes, but is instead connected to maybe some residual mood or concern or sense of grievance or upset from when they were awake. Possibly it's not doing anything for you. It just shows you were upset before you went to sleep, possibly, or emotional about something, positive or negative. So there is that problem with that paper. So let's step back just a little bit and say, what does it mean to say that dreaming has a function? It means to say, or one usual answer to that question is it means to say that we've evolved to have dreams of a particular type. People with those dreams have a reproductive advantage. And the reproductive advantage, or the advantage, occurs even if you don't remember the dream. So if dreaming is to do with memory consolidation, and it has that as a role, we pretty much have to say you don't have to remember the dream for that role to occur. Okay, it just happens during sleep. Your dreaming helps the memory consolidation or is part of it. You don't actually have to remember them. So that's one of the hallmarks usually of dreaming having a function, is even unremembered dreams have to have that function. The really famous person for saying dreams don't have a function is Owen Flanagan in his book Dreaming Souls. And what he says there, it's a fantastic paperback. There he says that dreams are decorative spandrels. Now, a spandrel is an architectural term that's now been taken over into evolution. A spandrel is a part of a bridge or an arch, which is this bit here, that bit there. And it doesn't really have a function itself. It's just a byproduct of the fact that you've got a bridge or an arch. And so what people over the centuries have done is they've started to decorate them. You can see it in the Arc de Triomphe and various other places that there's decoration going on. But the spandrel doesn't really have a function as regards what the arch or bridge is there to do. So what's been put forward is that maybe dreams are just decorative spandrels. So, given there's all this negativity about the possibility of dreaming having a function, or a lack of evidence, is there still a possibility of dreaming having a function, or a memory consolidation function? One possibility, even for the Aaron Wamsley study of mazes, is to say maybe we're dreaming of our social learning. Why was I being tested on that maze? How was I treated? How do I feel? After all, dreams are very social, often with many characters, and the metaphorical content may be the connecting of old and new memories in an original way to aid our social learning, which carries on throughout life, let's not forget. It's not just something for teenagers and young people. Now, one possibility is that a 2017 paper might lead to work that gives clues as to whether dreaming has a function. And we might hear from this tomorrow, I don't know, but I'm referring here to Francesca Ciclari's amazing paper in Nature Neuroscience on the neural correlates of dreaming. I won't say any background to it because we may get that tomorrow, but I was going to just mention that what she's found is what's called a hotspot near the posterior of the brain, which turns on and off and turns the dreaming on and off, or is associated with dreaming being turned on and off. One thing that we could possibly in the future find out, we may indeed even know, I don't know, is why the hotspot turns on and off, because that may give a clue as to why dreaming is turned on and off. And it may be, one possibility is this virtual simulation of the dream. The virtual simulation may sometimes be needed periodically in the night to complete emotional memory processing that's occurring. Maybe lots of our emotional memory processing doesn't require consciousness. In waking life, it may not require consciousness. But possibly our consciousness does something that's needed, and possibly our waking life consciousness, and possibly when we're dreaming, or rather asleep, periodically we need to turn on the simulation to finish the processing, to actually possibly experience the emotions. Maybe experiencing the emotions is an important part of the processing. I'll very quickly, am I about halfway through? Can I just check how I'm, great, okay, that's great. I just calibrating what I'm going to say. There is a very contentious bit of evidence that might support memory consolidation, and that's the dream lag effect. This is a very strange finding that we all know that we tend to dream of things that have occurred yesterday or possibly even the day before. These things pop into our dreams. There's a large number of papers that have been published, quite a few by me, but also by Torrey Nielsen, in some very sort of top journals about this and confirming this finding. And what happens in this finding, this is the classic early one, what Torrey found was that if you compare daily life to dreams, if you compare your daily life to one day ago, your dream to one day ago, which is there are some similarities. As you go away from one day ago, you stop having elements from waking life being incorporated into your dream. However, when you get to 5, 6, 7 days ago, things from that time seem to pop into people's dreams. And these are done on very rigorously done experiments to try and do that matching. Torrey wrote about it in Nature, 2005, Memory Sources of Dreaming. And we've just published in Journal of Sleep Research the largest sample size replication of this phenomenon. It is very odd to think of why do we tend to have these things from a few days ago coming into our dreams. Torrey Nielsen has proposed it shows some waking life, some 1 week period of memory consolidation that's reflected in dreams. So, first conclusion, despite dreaming and dream formation being so complex, we don't know if dreaming is related to memory consolidation or has any function. So let's look at a slightly different question. And it's related to the sleep-related abstraction that sleep can seem to do, which we've already spoken about this conference, and the fact that there are metaphors in dreams. Can the consideration of dreams give insight or self-awareness towards ourselves? And of course, there have been many claims of dreams and insight have occurred, such as the very famous, although disputed, claim by Kekulé that the circular shape of the benzene ring, that he got that idea by seeing a snake eating its own tail. And that gave him this novel idea. And so the idea is that REM sleep and possibly dreams are related to novelty and can produce novelty, and therefore the corollary of that, or the consequence of that, is that people say, well, actually, maybe if you considered your dreams, you would have some insights towards yourself. Now, this type of aha phenomenon you can get from dreams, there are two types of it. The more common one is the idea of you suddenly realize, this is where that part of the dream came from. The less common one, although they do occur, is, this dream tells me something about myself. So the question is, can there be a benefit, such as one of increased self-awareness, possibly mediated by metaphorical content, if people consider or share their dreams? And there is evidence in the literature of this. So, for example, this paper, The Effects of Dream Sharing on Marital Intimacy and Satisfaction. And there's a lot of such papers saying that dream sharing is quite common, even about a third of people doing it about every week or every month. So we therefore published this paper in an APA journal, which is it's just coming out this month, in fact, in which we woke people up in the sleep lab. We got their REM dreams, non-REM dreams, and also before they fell asleep, we pressed the buzzer and said, right, we're practicing, tell us what was going through your mind. And they gave us a daydream. So we then got the daydreams, REM dreams, and non-REM dreams and discussed the dreams with people for about 45 minutes with what's called the Ullman technique. And in this technique, what you do is you draw relationships between the dream and your recent waking life. And what we found was that about 50% of the discussions of REM and non-REM dreams provided some insight about the dreamer or their life. Now, the insight might not be astounding, but the dream content can act as a reminder, a reference to what the person might be ignoring, and it may do so in a metaphorical way. So an example of one that was given to us was by a person who had got rather angry with his family and had shouted at them on a day trip out. And that night he'd had a dream of writing a tweet and then starting to write the tweet in capitals, sending it to somebody who then came up to him and said, "You shouldn't send dreams in capitals. Only sort of really bad people send tweets with capitals." And this tweet so bothered that person that he said he didn't shout at the children or the family anymore as a result, because whenever shouting was a possibility, he thinks of people who would capitalize tweets. Now, this is a metaphorical dream. It's not astounding, but it has led to waking life action. And this is the type of movement, almost therapeutic movement, that some people could claim that dreams can do. So, a few years ago, there was going to be a science conference, the main science festival for the public in Britain. It rotates around different cities, and it was going to be held in Swansea. And I said, well, why don't I do public dream discussions with people and see what they make of their dreams? And so Julia Lockhart, who works at the local College of Art in a university, says, what if we gave the dreamer a drawn illustration of the dream so they could return to the dream across time, on their own or with significant other people, in a similar way to which people return to or lend someone their favourite film. So you'd have a painting that you could show to somebody else, or just reconsider yourself. And this illustration is made in about 60 minutes. And the artist and I have been doing this ever since the British Science Festival in September 2016. So this was the first episode where it was done. And there's Julia there. I was sitting over here discussing dreams with people. She was drawing the paintings of them. There's a tripod there with a camera on because it was a sort of public performance. And so the painting process was displayed on a big screen behind the people. This was all done at night. It was quite a sort of festive occasion. So this is one of the ones done at a library as part of a social science festival. That's Julia describing a painting to somebody in front of the audience who've been watching the painting being produced. We were then invited, and we've done this at Freud's house in London a few times, and we're going to go back next week as well to do it. There, members of the public come along and describe a dream. We discuss the dream. There's usually a very large audience at Freud's house, of course, about 60 people, who will chip in and talk about it. And this was the scene in the room which overlooks Freud's garden. And that's Julia drawing at the front and people here listening in. Now, this was one that was done in Los Angeles. It was of a young student who'd just finished her exams and gone off and seen friends and was finally relieved of all of the stress of work. And she dreamt of flying around Big Ben, the Houses of Parliament in London. And there's her and her friends flying around Big Ben. And it's a nighttime scene, and then she crashes and dives into the water of the River Thames. This one got a round of applause at the end of it. So this was done at UCLA. This was the one that was done there. It was quite amazing nighttime scene. So the aim had been to elicit insight in the dreamer, give them a record of an impactful dream that they can then share with others. That was the aim. However, things then started to get a little bit moving with some of the dreams. In doing the project, we started to realise the effect the discussions were having on us and could have on the significant others of the dreamers, because sometimes they brought friends along who join in with it and are having a discussion about the dream. This one was when we first realised how moving these things can become. This was a woman in her late 40s whose daughter was leaving home. She hadn't left home yet. But in the dream, she dreamt that her daughter had moved out. and was going into a new house, which was her house, with a red door, with her boyfriend. And the boyfriend and the daughter were going in, and as the door closed, the woman turned round and said, "So where is my home?" Which was a very poignant picture of somebody who suddenly realizes that their daughter has left home and wondering where she is now. You'll notice all these bits. We've been given permission by the publishers of Freud's Interpretation of Dreams to do the paintings onto pages taken from the book. So the street scene has street lamps done, actually in this case, from a chapter heading. The BBC then came along to do it, and one of the BBC presenters had a dream in which her brother was killed. He's perfectly okay in real life. But in the dream, this is the final artwork, she's hugging her brother who's been knocked down and killed on a road. And her comment to us afterwards was, "I'm going to show my brother the dream, the painting, because he'll then realise how much I love him," which was also very poignant. But it drew us into this idea of the dream having an effect on other people and of post-sleep effects. Whereas a lot of what we're talking about and a lot of what the research is about is within sleep effects of dreaming. These are post-sleep effects of dreaming. Now, this month, what we have therefore done is, because of that, we decided to do some experiments on empathy and dream sharing. And this paper is just coming out. We're just sort of finalising the proofs of it. But what we did in this paper was 2 studies, one of which we found was people who tell dreams, the frequency of telling dreams to others and frequency of listening to dreams to others correlate significantly with trait empathy. That was the first study. The second study, which is a bit more, shows possibly some causality, is we got people to sign up to the experiment in pairs. They were usually people in a relationship or friends with each other, and one of them would tell a dream, or more than one dream, to the other person. And they would use this Ullman method, in which you hear the dream and then discuss the person's recent waking life and try to draw connections between the two of them. And so that was what the procedure was. And what we found was that we got a baseline empathy score for the people who would share the dream and the people who would discuss the dream with them. And the person who was the sharer had a significant increase in empathy towards the person who was discussing the dream had a significant increase in empathy towards the person who was sharing the dream with them. So the question was things like, how much do you understand your friend's emotions? How much do you understand your friend's waking life, your friend's situations? That type of questions. The person who was sharing the dream didn't have a change, because obviously they're the person who's telling the dream, and they are, quite rightly, because that's the procedure, concerned with their own life at that point. So anyway, that's now coming out, and we'll send the link very soon, because it should be out within a few days. We speculate that the increased empathy on discussing a dream with someone and relating it to their waking life is because the dream is a fiction. Okay, dreams are very rarely copy waking life. It's about 2 to 3% of dreams repeat an event or episode from waking life. It's extremely rare to have everything, a whole event, unless you've got post-traumatic stress disorder. It's extremely rare to have an event from waking life transposed and incorporated into a dream. There's usually modifications, and it's usually quite novel. And one of the other things is we've recently found that the most common environment in dreams is an invented environment, rather than one where you've got some familiarity with it. And the interesting thing is, there's a whole literature on the effects of fiction, and that fiction has an empathic effect on the fiction reader, or with films, the person who watches the film and engages with a fictional film and gains some understanding of the characters and of the other social world. And so Oatley, who's one of the main researchers on the effects of fiction and how it has a greater effect often than non-fiction because it's designed to have that effect by the film directors or the writers. And he calls fiction a simulation of social worlds. And people who read fiction improve their understanding of others. The effect is especially marked with literary fiction. And the fiction is passed from an author to a reader or a spectator and increases their level of empathy. So what we're suggesting is that the reason dreams can have this effect is because they are a type of fiction, and that they're then explored with the other person. So the second conclusion is, whether dreaming does or doesn't have a biological, memory consolidation, or evolved function, right? We're not quite sure. Is it an epiphenomenon of the fact we've evolved to have imagination? And if evolution hasn't turned it off at night? Or does it have its own function? Now, one possibility is that it does actually have a function to do with memory consolidation. It does relate to your emotional waking life. It may be part of memory consolidation. But one of the interesting things about humanity is that those experiences that you have in the night can then be told to other people. And so we may be able to have a function of dreams, or possibly an additional function, if there's already a memory consolidation function, that would utilize the social characteristics of the simulational dream when the simulational dream on waking is thought about, because don't forget, if it is related to your memory consolidation or emotions, it'll remind you of things when it's thought about by yourself or told to your family or friends. So thank you all very much for listening to that. This is my list of acknowledgements to a whole large number of people who've been involved in large amounts of this memory consolidation plus insight or other work. And as the conference has done, we've now teamed up with artist Julia, who's also done a logo for the Sleep Lab. And I'm on Twitter there, and there's other Twitter accounts, and the Dreams ID Art Science Project has a website there, which will also be on the handout, which we'll give out for the next session. So thank you very much.